Thank you, everyone, for coming today to Elevate Network's monthly executive roundtable. Today, we're featuring Jenny Wood in her book, Wild Courage: Go After What You Want and Get It. For those of you new to these conversations, welcome. And I'm Allie McDonald. I'm a long-term investor and owner in Elevate Network. I'm a former financial services CEO. And if I could use a trait from Jenny's book, I'm going to be shameless for a second. Last Monday, I finished my 11th Boston Marathon in 4 hours and 10 minutes. So, at the ripe old age of 52 next month. So, um,
You're amazing. You're a beast. That's all I gotta say. I run marathons. I know what that takes.
Thank you very much for the comments. But today is certainly not about me. Those of you that are new to Elevate, because I know we have a lot of guests that have signed up today. We're the largest and longest standing global professional women's network. We operate in person and virtually, as you can all see. We're in over 30 cities around the globe, as we're seeing where you're all coming in from today. And we provide virtual and in-person programming for women at all levels of their careers. We're here really for the last 30 years. We've been here to elevate or lift each other up. But we also work with corporations, and really the intent here is to make work work for all. So our mission here at Elevate is to make work work for all. If I could, I'd like to warmly invite any of you to join our network. You'll see in the chat, someone will put in where you can go onto our website to do that. And also, I'd like to remind you members, I'm seeing a lot of your faces here, that the registration for Mobilize Women, this is our ninth annual Global Mobilize Women Summit, our virtual all-day summit. Registration is open. It's on June 4th. So please, please go sign up and share it with all of your friends. As you know, these conversations that we have during Mobilize Women are amazing. We bring Mobilize Women to you all for free. And how do we do that? With our amazing sponsors. And speaking of our amazing sponsors, today is being sponsored by Harvard Business School Executive Education. Again, we love them. Harvard Business School executive education programs offer world-class learning experience that energizes aspiring and established change makers, like Jenny Wood, who worked there in the research department worked at Harvard in the research department, I do believe. But for more information on Harvard Business School, it's in the chat. It's hbs.me/elevate. And for those of you that don't know, Elevate is spelled with two L's, Ellvate. Little bit more housekeeping before our main event. Please keep yourself on mute unless you're speaking. Ask questions in the chat. We'll get to your questions towards the end of the conversation today. Feel free to share pertinent resources as you're hearing Jenny talk about different issues, but no solicitations. Thank you very much. And then keep your eye on the chat for links for Jenny's resources and some of the tips and tricks that you'll be seeing come through there today. Lastly, some of you have seen our new and improved virtual programming menu. This includes what we're calling our Elevated Author Series, Elevated again, spell it with two L's, where we're going to promote, and may I say, elevate female nonfiction writers whose books are about topics that are of great interest to our over 200,000 members. I don't want to oversell today's call, but I would say, after reading Jenny's book and talking to her, this is the perfect content for our audience. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Jenny Wood. You can all see her in her yellow there. And her New York Times bestseller. Let me say it again, New York Times bestseller, Wild Courage. Wild Courage, go after what you want and get it. So welcome, Jenny. I'm not, as I do, I'm not going to read you her bio. You can all look up all the great things about Jenny and her experience. But one of the things I said to her, well, tell me something personal. She's like, I live in Boulder. I have a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old, and I like to hike and I do this and I do that. And then I'm listening to the book and she's like, and then I got my pilot's license. I'm like, what are we just hiding that? I'm like, that's pretty impressive. So anyway, welcome, Jenny. And let's start with you can say hello to, sorry, I'm talking over you.
No, you're fine. Hi, it's so wonderful to be here, Allie. I wasn't hiding being a pilot. I just don't fly as often as I hike, so hiking came to mind first. But yes, it's very fun to fly too.
Pretty cool. So start with telling us all what inspired you to write Wild Courage.
Well, actually, a moment in New York City in 2011, January 11th, actually, because it was my mom's birthday, which is irrelevant to the story. But I'm riding the subway home from work when a really good looking guy is standing like 20 feet away from me on the C train. And even though I want to talk to him, something holds me back. What if he's a convicted felon? What if he's married? What if 100 people stare at me on this packed train? Well, I later came to realize that underneath those questions were fears that so many people live with because they were the same fears that held me back so much of my life. Fear of uncertainty. What if he's married? Fear of failure. What if he's a convicted felon? Fear of judgment of others. What if 100 people stare at me on this packed train? So I sit there and do nothing as the train passes stop after stop after stop, and as life basically passes me by. But I'm still so taken by him. So I make a deal with the universe. I say, if he gets off at my stop, then maybe I'll try to strike up a conversation with him. And if not, then say la vie. Okay, the universe was not on my side that day because he gets off at the next stop. But then all of a sudden, Allie, this wave of wild courage washes over me and practically pushes me out of my subway seat and off the train as I run after him and catch him as he's exiting the station. I tap him on the shoulder. I say, "Excuse me, I'm sorry to bother you. You're wearing gloves, so I can't tell if you're wearing a wedding ring. But in the event that you're not married, you were on my subway and I thought you were cute. Any chance I could give you my business card?" And then I wait for what feels like forever as I think this was a terrible idea. But then he takes the card, he calls the next day, we go on a date a week later. 3 years later, we're getting married, and we've been now married 11 years happily with 2 kids. So, yes, Beth says this is amazing. It is an amazing story. It's an extraordinary story. But then I started using this in a lot of ordinary ways, wild courage, that is, like as a habit. And it started helping me in my career and, grew and grew at Google. And so, like, here we are. Now I try to spread insane amounts of wild courage into the world that help people achieve goals, both professionally, personally, in relationships, etc.
Well,
That's what got me here.
well, that one certainly paid off personally. Talk
Yeah,
to us a
definitely.
little bit more about how Wild Courage has helped you in your career.
Yeah, well, like I just said, I started like leveraging it intentionally, and I started asking for what I wanted at work. I started asking to build relationships with senior leaders. I started meeting my boss's boss every 6 months. I started what I call managing diagonally, right? If you think of an org chart, you've got your boss above you, their peers to the right and left. So that's managing diagonally. I started setting up time with them as mentors and sponsors. And so as I continued to rise at Google, ultimately being the COO of a large division at Google and helping drive billions of revenue for the company annually, I had people coming to me and saying, like, well, how did you rise from entry level to executive? And like, how do you navigate the politics at Google? Like, what's the real deal answer of how you made all this happen? So then one day, and I'd mentor people because I loved doing that. And I still love coaching people and, do executive coaching and one-on-one coaching because it gives me so much joy. So I always enjoyed doing this. But then when enough people asked me, being the operator, I thought, well, how do I scale this? So I was walking out of a meeting delivering bugs to engineering on one Tuesday, and I think it was 2021. And I thought, well, maybe I should scale my tips further at Google. So I sat down, I jotted down like a dozen tips on a black and white Google Doc. I figured I'll throw together a training, and maybe 30 people will come. And then 2,000 people came to that first training. And I was like, whoa, I'm hitting a nerve here in a good way. And Google had the most unbelievable learning and development programs and HR programs. But I think what was really striking a chord was that this was like for the business, by the business. I'd never worked a day in HR or people operations in my life. So I was just giving this like unfiltered, real deal, set of tips and tools and strategies around stakeholder management, networking, influence skills, speaking concisely, et cetera. And I just like it grew and grew. And so it grew to 56,000 people using the program. So about a third of the company at the time in nearly 100 countries. And then I realized something. Well, I loved my operations role and loved my team. I like help coaching people to be better than they think they can be was what truly drove me. And even though I had no intention to leave Google and figured I'd be there another 15 years, the opportunity cost on my time and energy became too high to stay there while also wanting to put this book out in the world in a really, really significant way and to try to hit the New York Times, which takes a lot of a lot of energy, effort, time, intentionality, and investment. So here we are, and that's what happened. I'm
Well,
so
here we
excited
are.
to be with all of you today.
Here we are. We have the 9 traits. It was Anush and I were just talking before we got on about how we could spend an hour on each one, at least an hour on each one of these 9 traits with you. And so we're so lucky to have you here just, to go through some of the key ones with us. So talk to us about the 9 traits. They're somewhat counterintuitive. They
Yeah.
raise some eyebrows. People, bristle at it maybe because of some of the words. For me, it made me want to just keep reading and reading
Oh,
more and
that's
hearing
great.
and hearing, okay, tell me how I'm going to be this way. So
Yeah.
take us through some of the traits or
Okay.
all.
So sorry, Allie, go ahead.
No, no, no. So I think you probably want to cover all of them for just mention them.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. So, wild courage helps you embrace 9 traits that create the bars of an invisible cage that keep you small. Think back to what I said about why I almost didn't chase John off the train. 3 fears: fear of failure, fear of uncertainty, and fear of judgment of others. In a corporate environment, and I know many of you are in corporate environments, it's that last one that can really hold you back. I would want to take this action. I'd want to ask for this thing. I'd want to ask a partner for this or a client for this, but I don't take that action because I don't want to be perceived. I don't want to be judged as one of these 9 things. Those 9 traits being weird, selfish, shameless, obsessed, nosy, manipulative. That's a spicy one. Brutal, reckless, and bossy. But when used in a savvy and sane way, these can actually supercharge your success. So I invite you to reclaim these 9 traits so that you can use them to your advantage. And just to give a couple examples, of what I mean by redefining them or reclaiming them, selfish is the courage to stand up for what you want. Shameless is the courage to stand behind your efforts and abilities. Reckless is the courage to take intelligent risks and err on the side of action. Manipulative is the courage to build relationships through empathy and to lean into your power to influence. So that's a little bit about the 9.
That's great.
And they are sizzly, right? Like, and especially for women. I mean, people say, "Did you write this book for women?" The answer is actually no. Like, all the examples in the book are gender agnostic, but some of these words in particular, I think are extra challenging for women to either navigate, or we have extra fear of being called these things. And so that's why I love speaking to women leaders and to budding women leaders.
I would even go as far to say that sometimes they're negative for women and not so negative for men.
Also that.
But so let's start with manipulative.
Yeah.
That one certainly stands out. What is an example of that? And talk to me about how it helps with communication skills.
Yeah. So again, it's all about building influence, building relationships through empathy, because whether you're selling a product, an idea, a process, or yourself, your ability to win friends and allies and partners is all about mutual benefit. So figure out what someone wants, go get it for them, right? Like, partner with them to expand the pie, not redivide the pie. And you'll see incredible things happen that both help others achieve their goals and you achieve your goals. And so much of that is how we communicate. Because pretty much when we open our mouths, we aren't just doing it to massage someone's eardrums. We're doing it because we have an intention. We want to get someone to say yes to something, or want to build a relationship or build a partnership. So there are 2 tools that I love that are like the positive side of manipulation. One is called Pull It and Bullet. One is called Tame the Octopus. So Carlina is on here. She's my chief of staff. And Carlina, could you flip up the slide that's about Pull It and Bullet? This is about how to influence, because this is a lot about what positive manipulation is, to influence in a written, with your written communication skills. So I'm going to have Carlina, if she's able to get the slides up. If not, I'll just talk through it. Show an example of 2 emails, right? So if your emails to stakeholders and senior leaders are, and here it comes, look like, if there's one right before, let's go back 2 slides. So there should be one that's just kind of like an image of like the graphic. Maybe, I think there's a delay. Yeah. Okay, maybe one right before this. Okay, perfect. Okay, perfect. So if your emails look like the left with a bunch of text and paragraphs, think about pull it 50% of your text and writing in bullets instead, like the right side. So let's look at what this looks like in practice, because we spend so much of our time writing emails, and sometimes we want people to take action based on our emails. Oftentimes, I'd say. So if you go to the next slide, this is, on the next slide, a beautiful example of someone who was applying for a role under me named Annabelle. She sent this to me trying to get a coffee chat, right? Trying to get the interview. And look how she uses bullet and bullet. She's got so little text here, 3 bullets. Leaders love threes. It's like a thing that we love. And she's got the first few words bolded of every bullet. She's sharing her superpowers. It's very clear to me what she would bring to the table. And it also tells me that if she were to get this role, she would communicate this way with our stakeholders, our partners, our clients, her peers. And it's so easy to understand what she's offering, right? So she is, let's call it, manipulating me into saying, yeah, I'd be pumped to have a coffee chat with you. I would love to interview you, right? So now let's contrast this with this dumpster fire of an email I'm about to show you. And don't worry, I'm not throwing anybody under the bus. This one is mine. There we go. Okay. So this is same goal. I wanted to get this role, and I'm just like word vomiting on the email, and it's very hard for the hiring manager to understand what it is that I'm trying to say. So Annabelle got the coffee chat. She got the interview. She got the role. I did not get the coffee chat or the interview or the role. And even if you just a couple times a day think about bullet and bullet, you're going to have a much better chance of influencing people the way you want to. So I'll let you take those down, Carolina. And actually, no, they already went down. That's fine. I think Tame the Octopus, Ali, I might ask for a little bit of your help with here. Can we role play as if you were my manager for this one?
Okay.
Okay, fantastic. So Tame the Octopus. If bullet and bullet is how to tighten up your written communication, Tame the Octopus is how to tighten your verbal communication. Now, you can use this in an interview. You can use this in a senior stakeholder meeting. Let's use an example now of using it in a team meeting, because that's a great place to use it as well. So raise your hand, either just like show us with your physical hand, or you can use the emoji. Raise your hand if you've ever been in a meeting where someone rambled on and on and on. Okay, I saw hands go up immediately. Now, raise your hand again if that person has ever been you. Okay, Patty and Stephanie and Gabriella and Maribel. Yes, me too. In fact, this is a skill that was very hard for me to learn, but it takes practice. It's a muscle. Nobody is born being able to tame the octopus. You can learn this. So if you go to the next slide, Carolina. Okay, so we're gonna pretend we're in a team meeting, Ali. I'm gonna answer this question 2 ways. One in an untamed octopus way where I'm rambling, and the other in a tamed octopus way. So if you could just ask me, Ali, pretending you're my team manager, Jenny, what are your team's biggest Q1 challenges?
So Jenny, what are your team's biggest Q1 challenges?
Oh my gosh. Well, we're a brand new team. So we've got so much going on, and we've got like all these different goals and priorities and things that we have to accomplish, because there's a lot of pressure on the business right now with the changes in AI and all of the different economic changes and policies. So that's one challenge. But like we also have a lot of things that we're doing that need to be kind of done with tools, either internally or through an API or through third parties. And that's kind of complicated too, especially with the complications of working globally. And because we've got teams in Europe and in Asia and Americas. Okay, you all get the idea. So Ali, how easy or hard was that to follow what my actual biggest challenges were?
I heard AI. That was it.
You heard AI, exactly, right? Amazing. Okay, now we're going to do it again, and I'm going to use the Tame the Octopus tool, and I will then walk through how I did it. But if you could just ask me the question again, I will answer it differently.
Jenny, what are your team's biggest Q1 challenges?
Let me take just a moment to think about that. Ali, my team's biggest Q1 challenges are number 1, priorities, number 2, tools, and number 3, global alignment. Priorities because we're a new team, so we still need to separate the important from the unimportant. Tools because we're doing some things in-house, some things through a third party, and we should button that up. And number 3, global alignment. Because we work across Americas, Europe, and Asia, we're not always working in concert with each other, and we should be doing that more. So to summarize, my biggest Q1 challenges are priorities, tools, and global alignment. How much easier was that to understand?
That was easy. I got
easy. Yeah. And Carolyn says, great example. And so what did I do there? I paused, right? I took a breath. I took a moment to write down some thoughts. I wrote down maybe 7 or 8 things that had been in the jumble of what I said initially. And then I just circled 3 that felt most relevant. And then when I started talking, I said just those 3 words first: priorities, tools, global alignment. And then I went into a little bit of each of them. Then I wrapped it up again by summarizing those three. So it's like when we pause, we think we're going to come across stupid or, not buttoned up or not poised, but we actually sound more confident and like we're honoring the question more. And I mean, I paused here for probably at least 20 seconds, if not more, with over 100 people staring at me, right? So it's definitely something you can do even in an interview. Like it gives your interviewer a chance to catch up on their notes. You can certainly do it in a team meeting. This is a layup, right? You can even do it before you come off of mute and raise your hand. And so I love this one. You can take the slides down. Thanks, Carolina. You're reading my mind. You're one step ahead. And one of the things that breaks my heart is when women are given the feedback, you're not strategic. And I think it's something that's oftentimes given to women. And I think the code behind it is like, you are rambling or it's too much information on a document or in an email, or you're saying too many things. This is the way to fix that feedback that I don't think is fair to women, but I think underneath it really means, can you just give me less? Can you be more discerning about what you say or what you write or how you separate the important from the unimportant, like I just did with the Tame the Octopus tool? Because that's feedback that breaks my heart when women get it, because I just think that women are incredibly strategic and this is how you show it.
Yep. Perfect. I love it. Okay, we have more traits we need to cover. How about brutal? Oh, that's a good one. And I know you want to keep talking about communications and what we bring to work, but I will say to you all, when you read the book, if you listen to the Audible book of Jenny, there's a personal story under brutal that I was crying during. Anyway.
Yeah, I actually teared up reading that story, and I said to the director when I was reading it, I was like, I can't read this story without tearing up. Do I need to go back and do this again? And he was like, and he's directed like Will Smith and Denzel Washington, like all these really, really big books. And he's like, no, keep the emotion in there. So that's interesting. This is the first piece of feedback, Allie, I've gotten on that.
It was perfect. I actually thought of it. I'm like, I like that they let you read it with like a little bit of a shake in your voice.
Yeah. So anyway, it's a hard story, but it definitely talks about brutal prioritization and how you separate, where you focus on work, where you focus on family. It's a story about my daughter. But there's another element of brutal that is also about concision. And it's about, again, a little bit of influence, a little bit of how do you break things down to the most important. And Carolina, I'm going to have you flip the slides back up here. And this is when you are in a meeting and you're talking to multiple stakeholders. This is a terrible first slide. Okay, we've got way too many numbers here. What is that? 3 times 7 rows, so at least 21 numbers, plus all the ones on the side. So we've probably got 45 numbers on the slide. And like, if I'm the C-suite looking at this, I'm just like, whoa, what are we trying to do here? So I'm going to have Carolina flip to the next one because I want you to use the GRAB framework. So GRAB is what can make an awesome first slide and influence somebody within 120 seconds by grabbing their attention. And this is how you be brutal about your content, right? Like, how do you prioritize what's important to share in that slide versus what's not? So GRAB stands for goal, request, action, and benefit. You probably did not take anything away from the first slide that we showed before this, but now we'll fill in this GRAB framework and Carolina can advance to the next one. By the way, you can take screenshots of any of this stuff. Like I hope that you grab these and you grab, pun intended, and use these so that it saves you time. So what is our goal in this meeting, C-suite? It's increase paid music subscribers by 20%. Let's say this is like a Spotify or iTunes kind of company, right? What's the request? Approve this $50K budget for the program. What are actions? So this could be something that you've done in the past to show like, hey, we're already making progress, or something that you want to do as a next step. We want to improve the customer satisfaction, we've already improved it 10.3%. And the next step would be to launch this referral program that I think my team should lead or whatever the action is. Benefit. Revenue from 20% more paid music subscribers will allow us to invest in AI more, right? So there you go. Really simple. Don't bury the lead. The thing that stressed me out so much, because I'd have tons of anxiety as a Google exec, thinking, am I letting people down? Am I offering enough value? I'd have so much anxiety if it was a 30-minute meeting and then like, they don't get to an ask until the last 3 minutes. And I'm always thinking, did I miss something? Was I not paying attention? Do they want feedback? Do they want headcount? Do they want budget? Do they want support? Do they want to present in my leads meeting? Like, you can take the slide down, Carolina. And so I would then have this massive imposter syndrome and anxiety. And so don't bury the lead. Like, just ask them right up front for what you want. Think of it as shameless. Think of it as selfish. Think of it as brutal, right? Like, but be bold in your ask, because it actually helps ground everybody in the meeting versus I have a friend, another big tech company who's an exec there. And she said, if you're meeting with an executive and you're not asking for something, consider whether you're wasting their time. And so it's a little harsh, but I kind of like that example.
I love it. I love it. So that's brutal. Let's talk about selfish.
Yeah. So selfish is the courage to stand up for what you want. It's about being your own champion because everyone, if you give everyone else a leg up at your expense, you'll end up getting trampled. And think about, as female leaders, and we might have some allies on this call, and so for the men joining us as well, thank you so much for being here. And it's so great to have your support and for you to think about these tools well, right? These tools as well, I should say. But, I think for women, we particularly feel like we give so much of ourselves to our careers, to our colleagues, to our manager, to our direct reports, if you have a family, to your children, to your friends. And sometimes it's very, very hard to canonically put our oxygen mask on first, but we know how critical that is. So in a work context, one frame I give is say yes to the big and say no to the small. And that's a way you can be selfish about what you prioritize of all the different 18 things you could be doing to move the business forward. So what's big? We say yes to the big. What's big? Being the person to launch that new subscriber, music subscription goal. That seems like a pretty important thing for the company. Seems like a strategic bet. Or maybe you raise your hand to run the H2 marketing plan or increasing CSAT by 15%, whatever it is. These feel like business metrics that move the business, and what moves the business is what moves your career. So those are things that are big, and I'd say raise your hand for those. They'll be scary. They'll be overwhelming. They will take time. They will require chunks of time outside of just responding to emails and going to meetings, but they're worth it. Now, what's small? If we say yes to the big, we say no to the small. Small is being the 18th person to reply all on the happy birthday Kelly email. Sorry, Kelly, to pick on you. You're the name I saw first. Give Kelly a high five when you see her next time in the hall, right? What's small? Going to every single meeting where you neither add value nor derive value. How often do we show up to the meeting simply because our name is on it and we don't feel like we can be selfish enough to click that button that says no with a little message that says, can't make it today, I'll read the notes, right? Well, all those things, all those emails, all those meetings add up to take up a huge chunk of your time. So say yes to the big, no to the small. And one particular type of work that is small that I want to caution you against is what I call nap work. And NAP stands for not actually promotable. And this was coined by my mom. We were sitting at the table and I was like, I need a name for this. And so we came up with NAP because you don't want to nap at the office. And it's the kind of stuff that you don't really get a ton of credit for. So, and sometimes, not always, it falls a little bit more on women than men. So especially as budding leaders, as managers, as people who want to thrive in their careers, which is all of you, think about NAP work. So this could be agreeing to take notes in every single meeting. Hey, who wants to lead the well-being pillar? We need someone to organize the company dinner for, when the VP's in town. Now, I want to be really clear here because this is nuanced. These things are good for team building. They're good for culture. They're good for collaboration. And you want to be a good teammate. But if you sense that you've got more than 15% of your time invested in a nap work, or that you're always getting asked over and over again, can you take notes in the meeting, Angela? Or Tracy, hey, can you plan the company offsite fun event, right? Like, do it once. And then when the offsite comes around next year, sit on your hands, say no to the small, wait selfishly while someone else raises their hand, because even though you had a blast on the well-being pillar last year, it's not the kind of thing that, if you do too much of it, is going to get you promoted, is going to have you, rise to leadership, is going to be the fulfilling work that is good for the business and good for your career. So just be mindful. If you feel like you've tipped more than about 15% nap work, be mindful that it's not actually promotable and try to rebalance the portfolio. And it sounds selfish, but really it's a good way to prioritize your career and actually what matters for the business.
Yeah, and I think many of us have seen people do too much nap work, and you love having them on the team because you can go to them for that, but it's not good for their career and forward momentum. Totally.
And think about the people who do say no to that kind of stuff, or who do say like, well, I could do that, but I've got this really big business priority. How do you want me to reprioritize? Like when you hear those people say that, you're like, whoa, I wish I could do that. How could I be more like them? And those are the people who oftentimes you see rising to leadership positions. It's a
It's true.
balance, but you have to make sure you're balancing it.
Yeah, that's a very good strategy though. Not actually promotable. That's so great. Um, okay, so you know the blueprint, right? You're giving us a lot of these tips and tricks. There's so many more in the book. And you know the how to be successful in your career. You figured it out early and to the point where Google uses your your blueprint in training others. So what made you were a darling there. What made you
Mhm.
decide to leave corporate America after 18 years and take a bet on yourself and go out on your own?
Yeah, so it was the hardest thing I've ever done is making this decision. I grew up at Google. I mean, I was there for so long. It's the second job I've ever had. I worked at Harvard Business School. So exciting that HBS Exec Ed is sponsoring this today. Thank you so much for having me. First of all, feels like I'm coming home back to HBS. So I was there for 3 years doing research, 1 year negotiations, 1 year technological substitution and strategy, and 1 year organizational behavior. So it was an incredible experience there. But then after that, that was 3 years. Then I was at Google my entire life. So it was very, very hard to decide to leave. And if you think about the reckless trait that had to come into play for me, so that's the courage to take calculated risks, to err on the side of action. Better to learn from your mistakes than waste time kind of predicting the consequences of every action. So as I teach in Wild Courage, think fast and fearless. If you're on the fence, do it. And yet, some of these traits are incredibly difficult for me to embody and use myself. And reckless is hands down the hardest one for me. I was like economics major. I'm such a left brain thinker. Everything is a pro con list. Everything is cost benefit analysis. And so to just kind of like decide to jump was really difficult. But things had gotten very, very difficult for me. I was running my full-time operations team. I was like doing my full-time day job. I was running the Own Your Career program. There was all this external interest in my work because I post every day on LinkedIn. Carolina, if you want to drop, a LinkedIn thing in the chat, people can connect with me. I'm happy to help anybody here. And I also feel free to share my newsletter. I share a weekly tip every Tuesday, which is a fun read. Today's was about manipulative, but okay, I digress. So, I was doing all this external stuff like posting on LinkedIn every day and also being a wife and mom. And I was absolutely drowning. And I've always suffered from what I call lowercase a anxiety, just kind of like a little bit of type A, high stress, low level anxiety that I live with. But it was so intense that I was oftentimes up from 2 o'clock to 5 o'clock in the morning. And I was destroyed the next day. And then all sorts of other things happened. Like maybe it's just being 40, I guess, 45 now, 41 at the time, whatever it was. My hips started to hurt and my eyesight got worse. And I was like, I feel like my hair is like visibly thinning. Like everything just felt like it was going to shit. Excuse my language. So I was like, I can no longer sustain this level of intensity. And I thought back to this really good advice that a mentor, Julie, gave me. She said, you can do it all, but not all at the same time. And I was like, I am trying to do it all at the same time. And again, even though I never intended to leave Google, I felt like something had to give. And the moment that happened was, oh, thank you. Yes, that is a great visual for this, Carolina. Thank you for popping this up. So yes, I was trying to build the entire castle in a day. And so I was driving Ari home from work, from choir, and we live in Boulder at the base of the mountains, and up these windy roads, and it was nighttime, and I was like, did my eyes just flutter closed? Like it was one of those days that I'd been up from 2 to 5 a.m. and I was so deprived. I don't think I actually fell asleep at the wheel, but I felt like I was about to, and I was like, what am I doing? So despite how sad I was to leave Google, how I did kind of feel like a Google darling. Although, Ali, I will say that changed over time because it became hard to balance running Own Your Career and my core job. And I definitely got some slaps on the wrist around like, how are you prioritizing your core job versus this like passion project that, yes, became something that was spread across a third of the company, but still like, it's not what my boss was there to do. So like my boss wanted me to run the operations team. And so I did feel a little bit less like a Google darling. As I tried to really have a real difficulty balancing it all. And then got some harsh feedback. Like that's never fun. But I still felt like I left on a bit of a high at Google without totally crashing and burning. But I had to recognize the signs of I am doing too much. I'm about to not do any of it well. And I have an honor roll hangover from school, and like I did want to do it all well, and so I was really spreading myself too thin. I felt like I was letting my team down, and then I got into this whole like tailspin of, but how scary it's going to be to leave. I'm not going to have the Google brand behind me anymore. I'm not going to have, I'm not going to have a paycheck every 2 weeks, like a big paycheck. And I'm the breadwinner for my family. My husband works part-time in nonprofit. And so it was terrifying to me that like I was telling myself all these stories, like, what if we have to move out of our nice house in Boulder? What if my parents are disappointed in me because I, give up this big career that's supporting my children and funding college, right? What if my kids are mad at me because I can't bring them to Google and they can't slide down the fun slides and go to the hidden game room and have the fancy snacks? But then I separated, and this is something else I cover in Shameless. I separated truths and tales. Like, what are the truths in this situation, and what are the tales? And I didn't even realize we were going to show a slide for this, but we've got it here. So that's awesome. So truths are verifiable facts. Tales are the stories you tell yourself that fuel doubt, worry, or assumptions. But we do this every day. We tell ourselves tales, stories, untruths every day. And they can be these gremlins on our shoulder, right? That keep us small, that promote the fear of uncertainty, of failure, of judgment of others. And then we might also have a slide here that separates the truths. Okay, so tale, I will lose my entire identity. And then if you advance it, it's actually just that, no, I'll no longer be employed by Google, right? Another tale, I will run out of money. We'll have to move out of our nice house, which I kind of said already. And the truth there is I won't get a paycheck with the Google logo on it every 2 weeks, right? But perhaps, and okay, another one, my parents will question my choice as the breadwinner. And then reframing that to the truth is my parents have always been supportive, right? So we can take that down. But like think right now about something that you could even type it in the chat if you want. Like you don't even have to tell us the scary thing you're thinking about, but maybe think in your mind the tale that you're telling yourself right now. And then maybe just put in the chat, like, what is a more empowering tale you could tell yourself? So for me, the more empowering tale was, yes, I am leaving this incredible job, and I encourage all of you to stay at your company, to grow, to oh my gosh, guy, Carolina, again, one step ahead here. Clearly, this is not the first rodeo that we've talked about this content, but this is the first time we've done a mix of fireside chat and also some of my keynote content. So this is really fun here, and I like the surprises. So for me, the more empowering tale was I rather than saying, we'll have to move out of our house. Maybe it's, I could do this for a period of time. And if it doesn't work out, I could always go back and get another corporate job, which I absolutely love working in big companies. I know there's a lot I can offer in corporate. And so, just even if you reframe one truth, or one negative tale to a positive tale, that is something that can be very productive.
And we have a negative tale that's coming in that
Sure.
says, I will never find a job.
Oh, I won't get the job. Yeah.
We've got multiple. We've got, I will never find a job twice or a few times, and then
Yeah.
I won't get the job. So
Yeah.
how do we reframe that?
Well, first, there's just this is a slightly different tool that's also in the shameless trait. But if you reframe that to start with, I can't or I won't, like I can't get a job yet, or I won't ever get a job. Add the word yet to that. Like I can't get a job yet, or I haven't found the perfect role for me yet. That's one thing you can do. But then also, to reframe a more empowering tale, it's literally just saying out loud the opposite, right? Or maybe not the opposite, because that might be too Pollyanna or too rose-colored glasses, but maybe it's, I know the perfect job, or maybe perfect is hard. I know a great job exists out there for me. Like literally, whoever wrote that, I want you to rewrite, I know a great job exists out there for me. Like, and see what it feels like to write that. And then try saying it out loud, today to a friend, to a partner, to somebody else, or even just in the mirror. And like, it is as simple as just telling yourself a more empowering tale, because there's nobody on this call who has more gremlins and more negative self-talk and kind of more catastrophizing than I do in my brain. And so I know what it feels like to have those negative thoughts and to kind of be glass half empty. I seem like a really positive person, and I am in a lot of ways. But then, I'm an entrepreneur for the first time. It is terrifying. It is full of rejection. It is full of, feeling self-doubt. It is full of no's and full of ghosting. Actually, Carolina, this is one slide I know I shared with you this morning. I think we should put this one up because this is, like the hardest stuff at Google was like I'd get constructive feedback in my performance review and they'd be like, "Oh, Jenny, you could talk a little slower," or when you presented to that client, you said a couple too many times. That was like felt terrible, but that was the kindest feedback. Now I get stuff like this. This is an email I got the day before my book came out. Subject line: I hope your book flops. You don't have to read all of it. Just read the thing that's highlighted. I hope for you and your daughter that this book flops. Okay. So like it is so hard to be an entrepreneur. And so if you are feeling gremlins, if you are feeling like, and some of you might be successful entrepreneurs and it's fun. I love it. It's exciting. But like now I deal with really, really hard stuff and I'm out there very publicly and some people are going to hate it. Some people think I'm a monster for encouraging people to be manipulative. And so, my point is that it is anytime you start something new, a new job, a new team, a new project, a new career, in my case, that's when the gremlins, the negative self-talk and the tails come creeping in, but we can counter those. We have the power and the agency to counter them.
I would say those people that are giving you this right off the cuff negative feedback are used to reading the comment section on Truth Social or something versus actually going in and reading and listening to your book because you're very clear about these topics and they're not negative when you actually
exactly. And so and they say like sunlight is the best disinfectant. And now I love sharing it because also I say shame shrivels when shared out loud. And so I actually really enjoy sharing it now because it's hard to get constructive feedback, but now I can kind of laugh about it a little bit, but it still hurts.
Before we go to answer some of the questions that are already in the chat, I want to hear a little bit about Grandma Lila.
Oh, Grandma Lila was wonderful. So this would also fall under shameless. Grandma Lila was not only a bridesmaid in my wedding at the age of 88, she was the CEO of her own financial services company until 92. And Grandma Lila, like one of her credos was no is just an opening offer. Okay, like that was just her vibe. So my husband, John, and I were living with her for a couple months while we were apartment hunting in New York. One day we sit down to dinner and also talk about like, Allie, constructive feedback or difficult things and pushing past the fear and like using data failure as data. This was a really hard event for my husband. We sit down at dinner. He says, my company just went through a major restructure and unfortunately I've been laid off. Well, I'm crushed, but I look across the table at Grandma and she's got that gleam in her eye. And she says the classic line, no is just an opening offer. Well, John and I look at each other across the table trying to silently communicate what we're thinking. And finally, John sighs and says, Grandma, I don't think it works that way. A layoff is like a one-sided thing. They say, you don't work here anymore. And I say, okay. And that's when Grandma Lila sighs and she says, well, sure, it might be more comfortable to take no for an answer, but that discomfort will pass. Get your ego out of the way and find a compromise. You both want something. They want you to get stuff done, even though they can't afford to pay you. And you want a job because it's easier to get a job when you have a job. So finally, John relents. He, the next day, half-heartedly calls his VP and offers to stay on at 10% time and pay while he job hunts. And surprisingly, they accept. So, and by the way, then they moved him back up to 50%, back up to 100% when the financial crisis passed. Now, this is a total fluke of a situation, right? I'm not sharing it as some influence tactic per se, but the point is Grandma Lila's lesson. And this almost sums up everything we've been talking about or what I started with, which is don't let fear shape your decisions. And how often do you do that? How often do you not ask a partner for what you want or a customer for what you need or the cute person on the subway if you can give them your business card, as it were in my case? Chances are when you don't take action, it's because of fear. But that's actually such great news because fear you can work with. And when you muster the wild courage to chase what you want in life, you will discover a vital truth. No matter whether you succeed or fail in any one given thing, you will never feel as purposeful, powerful, and alive as when you're pushing past that fear to the joy and success on the other side. Because everything you've ever wanted is waiting for you on the other side of fear. So reach for it. And that's a little bit about Grandma Lila.
I love that. I love that. I think I read it. I don't know if you mentioned that she does like was doing push-ups before your wedding.
She was, yeah, with all the 20 something bridesmaids or 30 something bridesmaids.
That's just awesome. Okay. So this has been great. We want to know, we have a couple questions I'm going to get to.
Great.
I think the one that always comes up when someone like you comes in and you've got these great stories and you've obviously, had the fear, but the wild courage has set you on a really positive path. Where along the line did you have a failure and how did you come back from it? That's from Colleen.
Okay. Um, so I think I mean I've had tons. I've had tons. I actually felt like I was kind of failing at the end of Google, though objectively, I would say it didn't look like, well, I got like a really negative feedback score toward the end when I was balancing all this. And like, it was so hard for me. It was so hard. Um, and like, I'm such a metric person. It was very hard for me to not equate that to my worth and to like push past it and be like, okay, everything's graded on a curve. I went from, I felt like I had fallen from grace a little bit because I was this like, you know, again, this is my perception. I think everybody else's perception at Google was still that I was like flying high. I felt like I had fallen from grace. Um, but it was hard to get feedback about how I should balance my portfolio, right? It was hard to get feedback that like this passion project became too big, but it wasn't really what we were like, what Google was paying me to do, even though people liked it. So that was extremely hard. There was also a really hard failure when I started managing managers for the first time. And I had so much imposter syndrome. We were shutting down a business unit in one part of the world and building it back up in another. And I just like so badly wanted to prove myself and prove that I was the right person that they hired and that I had the knowledge and I had the skills, but I didn't have the knowledge or the skills yet on that team. So instead of going into that offsite with my leaders who reported to me at this one particular offsite, I felt like I had to overcompensate for my imposter syndrome and like slam as much information into this 30 slide deck as I could and present that deck to my senior leaders reporting to me, be like, this is the plan. This is our North Star mission statement. These are the three pillars. This is a leader for each pillar. I went in, I plugged in my laptop, I started excitedly presenting, and they raked me over the coals. Like the energy in the room immediately dissipated. At Google, we have something called psychological safety, and that means like feel free to speak your mind to anybody, even if they're your boss. Well, let's just say they were feeling very psychologically safe that day because they were like, Jenny, why would you come in here thinking you have all the answers? You've been here, what, 3 months? We have a combined 35 years of experience on this particular team with these products and these regions and these dynamics and these players. And so I was like, well, you're right. Like, let's scrap this plan and start over. But like a good leader just walks into the room, throws a bunch of Sharpies on the table, asks a bunch of nosy, right? That's one of the traits, what and how questions. Nosy is about getting insatiably curious. I wasn't curious enough that day. I was trying to prove myself, and it was rooted probably in that lowercase a anxiety. But as a result, I kind of made a fool of myself and won no favors, right? Or like, what's the expression? No, nobody was happy with me that day. So that was a big failure. I recovered from it by using what I call one of the humble two of the best things a leader can say. I don't know, and I was wrong. So that day I did say I was wrong. Let's scrap this plan and start over. But the other one of the humble two is I don't know. And that's what I should have led with that day, walking in with a blank slate and saying, let's make this plan together. And I'll ask the questions that help direct you to the genius of this team. So two different failures there.
And so maybe the other side of the coin is what's something that makes you feel brave today, even if no one else sees it.
Ooh, I really struggled to balance writing this book and raising my kids the last couple of years. And so I feel extraordinarily proud. And Carolina can attest to this because she knows how much my family sacrificed for me to spend all this time writing the book and then travel like constantly. But I just feel like I've been making such good choices the last couple of weeks since the book came out to very quickly rebalance the portfolio to more school pickups, driving the kids more, quality time, special time with them on the weekends, building a little fairy garden with Noah, my daughter, at the playground last weekend, and then going on a 2 mile walk with my son without my cell phone. Like those, nobody sees that. But I didn't think, like, I started criticizing myself, like, how am I even, first of all, my husband's incredible. So like, thank goodness to him for picking up so much of the slack the last few years and doing so many dishes. But I was like, how am I even going to tap back into mom world when I feel like it's been such a smaller sliver of my overall life? But I tapped back in quickly and I feel very proud of that. And I no longer feel like a crap mom.
Well, That's very good news. That's excellent news. Do we have any more questions? I think you covered so much ground. I want to also make sure if I have missed any questions, please raise your hands or come off camera. And I have one.
Yeah.
So as we are called Ellevate Network and we're here to support each other and lift each other up, how can we on your new journey and support you? Is there people out here that work for companies who are interested in your book? What can we do? What
Yeah.
can we do to support you, Jenny?
Yeah. Oh, that's such a generous question. Well, I love working with companies to do keynotes and workshops and fireside chats. Carolina is probably, I can see her eyes looking down, so she's probably putting something in the chat. Um, and yeah, if I can add value to an offsite or a sales kickoff or a leadership, summit, whatever it is, by way of keynote or fireside chat or workshop, I'd be delighted. Like this kind of thing fills me with joy, whether it's virtual or especially in person. And then I do executive coaching. I do one-on-one coaching, and I really, as I mentioned, just love doing that. And yeah, or if you think this book or these concepts might be valuable for your team, just reach out to Carolina or me. You can put our emails in the chat, and we'd love to support you on a bulk buy. And then I have this newsletter, which Carolina might have already dropped. And that's a great way. That's like a really wonderful way to stay connected because I send like real deal stuff every single Tuesday. Today was about this great story about how I, quote unquote, manipulated this situation to meet someone at an airport by changing my flight. And obviously very harmless, but a really fun example in today's newsletter. So that's a fun thing. And we have tons of free, like maybe Carolina, can we give out the 8 tips and strategies to say no to meetings, favors, and projects? That's a great one. Maybe if anybody picks up the book today, let's drop the Amazon link. If anybody picks up the book today, is it already in the chat? Okay. If anyone picks it up today, I want to gift you this imposter syndrome resource I have as well, which I know is so hard for so many people. It's a really, really wonderful resource about imposter syndrome. So there's 1,000 ways you can support my new work. Thanks for the question, Allie.
We just had Michelle on here. I think she might have popped off, but she just mentioned that she bought it and she's going to give it to all of her executive clients. I think she's probably another executive coach. So
Love that.
That's excellent to see.
Love that. Thank you.
Okay. Well, this was amazing. I, for one, am so glad we're best friends now, Jenny.
Me too. I've been telling everyone
yeah.
how cool you are and how excited I am to be in the Ellevate fold because, like I said, these are my people. Sorry, Allie, I interrupted you. I got so excited.
Oh, no, that's great. We're so glad to have you in the network. And I've just the last plug for the book. I am one of these people that often puts down these, any book that feels like self-help. I start reading it. I'm like, yeah, I know that. That's good. This is just a really great book with so many great actionable tips, but then it's so human. Like there's so many good stories in there that are so very human that we can all relate to. So I, for one, am very glad that you came on here today, Jenny, and we thank you so much for your time.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to contribute to your goals collectively in this room because you could have spent the last 60 minutes anywhere and you chose to spend it with us. And that's like a real, real, real gift. And I'm very grateful for that. And what a joy to contribute. And let me know if you pick up the book, let me know what you thought. Like just email me, send me a DM. Like that is such a gift too, is I don't know what's resonating. It's so helpful to know. So it's great to be here.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, definitely. Carolina, do we need a process if someone picks it up today and they want to get that resource? Do they know what to do so that they're able to get it?
Yeah, I just popped in the landing page for the book, wildcouragebook.com. You can also email me at Carolina@itsjenny. That's in the chat as well.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, I'll make sure to get those to you.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me, Allie, and to HBS Exec Ed and to all of the Ellevate crew. It's just really a pleasure to be here.
Great. Thanks, Jenny.
Okay.
Thanks, Carolina.
All right. Thank you.
And thank you all, members and guests.
Take
We'll see
care.
you soon.